all of my nephews and nieces have at least 5 shares of the 300 that we had available. There's still a few shares in the bank, but we've got 2 generations of folks now that are official owners of the property.
That's
And
great.
the next generation is not above showing up for a work party. So we've
That indicates that you're
yeah.
going to have a 3rd generation that's probably will
Yeah.
be very successful.
Yeah.
That's great.
we're hoping so.
Good. Well, all of us who have been privileged to work with you over these years, quite a few years, simply have to admire your dedication and your extraordinary administrative skills. So what drives you to work so hard for our woodland community? You know, you and Mary could just be relaxing and traveling with your 5th-wheel trailer.
I've heard that proposal also. But I think one of the things is that I had always kind of envied people that were available to volunteer for things that interested them. And I thought that'd really be something to do when I retire. And I'd also heard wives of retirees complaining about, being followed around the house by a husband that didn't have anything to do. So I said, well, hey,
Too much supervision?
Yeah, maybe I should get out of the house. And I'm not sure but what I've overdone that. But Mary hasn't complained that I'm doing too much supervision of her.
Yes.
And there are things that I'm interested in, and forestry is one of them.
Of course.
And so forestry and people, and it's kind of nice, when you get tired of talking to trees and they don't talk back, you go talk to people, and it doesn't take long to get tired of them because they do talk back,
Yeah.
But just, that, I don't know for sure if that answers the question or not, but
I think so.
I've always been interested in forestry since I met a Forest Service district ranger in 1945 when I was 14 or 15. We just moved up to the place, and he seemed like a guy that really had his act together and enjoyed what he was doing, and yeah, it was pretty.
Yeah, that might be something you'd like to do,
maybe
too.
I'd like to do that, too, yeah.
All right. Well, in addition to all the contributions of time and leadership that you give here in your own community, you've served our woodland community in a number of ways. President of the CCFFA. And I recall you being the leader of the mother of all committees, the one that organized a state OSWA convention and tree school, all rolled in one. And then you have moved on to lead the state organization. Please tell me something about how you came to be in still another leadership role. I mean, you had such great success here in Clackamas County. And and I need for you to clarify for me, were you both executive director and president at one time, or what?
Yes.
How did that work?
It came around when the organization had a real problem, and Denny Miles, executive director, resigned. There was, somebody needed to step in and run the office, and I had experience running an office, and it didn't scare me. So I said, well, I would do it, but I won't, I'm not going to volunteer for that job. So I set a price, and that I'll do it for $100 a day in mileage. And so they took me up on it. And that was with the idea that the job would last until we got a full-time executive director, because we wanted to go to full-time. And so that was a period of 3 or 4 months. And then I was elected president. I was the second vice president at that point.
Oh. And then after 3 or 4 months, then
Then
you were
I was-
elevated
Yeah.
through election.
And because of various reasons, and one of them was some very serious health problems, Bill Arsenal, as first vice president, stepped aside.
Mhm.
And he kind of, I don't know, sounds bad, anointed me. You know, that
Yes.
that really wanted me to run for or to be on the ballot for president, and nobody else would volunteer to be on the ballot. So I had to shoo him, and then within probably a little over a year, this happened at about the same time the new executive director showed up.
Mhm.
And it became evident after a while that he was in over his head,
Mhm.
and he decided that he had some legitimate family problems that he wanted to go solve, so
Mhm.
he resigned.
Mhm.
Well, John, would you fill in again?
Once again.
Yeah, and I did with the same contract. You know, that
Mhm.
that
How long did that
Um,
period continue, do you think?
again, that was seemed like forever, but it was only probably 3 or 4 months. And then we hired this guy from the World Wildlife Fund, and you know, got this list of applicants, and you know, we had these folks, and this one guy sounded really good, but you know, he's kind of green, you know, from an environmental organization, you know, and so we actually selected him as a person to interview.
Uh-huh.
And when we got done with the interviews, the committee sat down and we did all of our analysis stuff, and he came out on top.
Huh.
And, okay, John, would you please check his references, and if they check out, offer him the job. And I said, fine. And what happens if they don't? Do I go to number 2? And they say, no, we start over.
Yes.
I said, oh, well, okay,
Okay.
let's hope he pans out. Well, the references that he gave were very supportive of it, and they were very honest. That you know, he's a young guy, and you know, he hasn't had much experience in that, but he learns quick, and you know, and so we hired him, and he came in, and it didn't take him too long to grab a hold of the reins and start doing things. And I think that a lot of the success of the organization since then has been the result of his efforts, because he's toiled endlessly for us, and it's kind of interesting watching him function, because sometimes he'll get so frustrated, you know, just that I'm sure there have been times when he was that close to quitting.
Yes.
And I was shaking in my boots because I wasn't going to be executive director again.
Oh, please,
you know?
please don't
Yeah.
quit.
And so I think that we've got that kind of worked out, and I don't know for sure where we're going now with this.
Okay. Well,
Did that answer your question?
that answered my question pretty darn well. How many years, John, do you think that you actually spent working at the state level? And let's include in that calculation, because the Clackamas County Farm Forestry Association years, when you were president there, because you're on the board.
Yeah.
So it is a state
I
function.
think I was.
Did you have 2 terms there?
It seemed like it, but I think it was only a term and a half.
Oh, okay.
Did I fill in after? I don't know. It seemed like
Who came before you? Do you
I
remember?
think Ken Everett. I think
Hmm.
either Ken or Roy Byer.
I would have to check my list. I think I have a list of everybody in
But-
the order,
Yeah.
but I don't have it with me.
And I have the feeling that it was Ken, but I
Huh.
would have to do some checking and follow that up. But
So that could be 3 years
yeah,
at least
yeah.
there.
And so that was probably in, oh, let's see. 90 or 91. So there's probably been 12 or 13 or 14 years that I have been doing something at the state level. In fact, I met a guy today that I've known for several years that was amazed when he found out that I had been district ranger at Sisters.
Why?
Because he had known me as in the Society of American Foresters or in small woodlands. And he didn't realize I had a life before that, I guess. And that the fact that I've been retired for 17 years, you know, people kind of, you know, don't realize that, you know.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wonder what the definition of retired is, but.
Okay. You know, well, you've guided us through some good times with OSWA and some challenging times. Shall we talk about some of the highlights of your years actually leading the state organization? What have been some of the achievements that gave you particular pride and satisfaction?
Well, like I said earlier, the activities of Mike Gadern have,
Yeah.
you know, have really the fact that he has taken the ball and run with it in the direct, and he was, you know, we could kind of modify his direction occasionally. I guess that the fact that I was involved with hiring him is pretty significant, and
I would say so, yeah.
I don't know for sure if I want to admit this or not, but he wasn't my #1 candidate.
We won't tell Mike Gadern that.
but you know, the thing is that he's just, you know,
Turned out to be quite,
you know, and
quite good.
the thing, it's kind of hard to say what it is, but the fact that OSWA now has a spectacular reputation
Good.
with, you know, there for a while,
I know it.
we
it was
were
wrong.
at odds with particularly the industry, with OFIC, and now I sit on not only their board, but their operations committee, their executive committee.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm a member of their executive committee
Gosh.
as president of OSWA.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, probably the outstanding thing that I feel that I really had a hand in was healing that wound.
And John, I have to say that my observation of you, and when I was speaking with John Foster today, he talked about your skill in doing that. He said, you know, when things start falling apart, John always finds a way to pull it back together and get everybody on track.
That,
Yeah, and it sounds as though that's exactly what you did once
Yeah.
more. So I think that's really wonderful, and you know, we all appreciate what you did for us.
and by the same token,
Yeah.
we are separate organizations.
No.
You know, that I don't feel that I caved into industry.
Oh, I see what you mean.
I feel that OSWA is accepted by
Oh, yeah.
OFIC as a partner, a landowner.
Yeah,
No, not,
a respected other
Yeah.
entity.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's very good. That's the way we want to be. Dare we talk about some of the challenges that were the toughest? You've talked about some things, you know, that were pretty big challenges. Any challenges maybe that others that stand out, or any challenges that you feel still are to be met
Well,
by
there
the
were
organization?
there were some. I guess I would call them, you know, personality conflicts
Mm-hmm.
that kept rearing their ugly head. And I'm not sure that we've gotten them solved. I hope we've, you know, made some real headway on them.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that gives me some hope is that this year we had a really good ballot with 2 qualified candidates for each position.
Mm-hmm.
And we, one of the members put a note on the bottom of his ballot that he didn't really appreciate that.
You wanted a bigger choice?
No. We gave him a very tough decision to make.
Yeah.
Because, there were good individuals, but they were different individuals.
Uh-huh.
And the responsibility then was his, is to decide which one he wanted in that job. And what we should have done is had a ballot with one person and a blank line for a write-in.
Maybe.
and the thing that I had been really disappointed with is that we didn't offer viable candidates for all of the positions, and have a
For the vice presidents and that?
yeah, and have two people running for the positions that were qualified, and not a lame duck, or not a lame duck. That's not the word. But just a
Token?
yeah.
Oh, I see, okay.
And we've got
Maybe that's too strong a word.
yeah, we've got Joe Blow, who is he's God's gift of whatever that position is, and then we got Bill.
Yeah, somebody else.
Yeah.
Then what you're saying, as I understand it, is that second person that really was on the ballot, that other person could have been offered in nomination for some other responsible position as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And get two really good people instead of settling for one.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other challenges that you or anything that's unmet that you want to talk about?
That well, right now, Christoph Buchler and Rod Nystrom are working on a corrective plan for OSWA.
Corrective?
Yeah, just people. There's this undercurrent that things are screwed up, and so we need to straighten them out. And so Christoph, in his very straightforward way, says, "Oh, what's wrong?"
Well, let's investigate what really is wrong.
Yeah, and
maybe it's only an impression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he has put an article in the Update. He's talked to people. He's asked questions, and nobody's told him anything. And so he's coming to the conclusion, I think, that he'll report at the August board meeting, that there's no problem. Well, one of the problems is getting people to step forward and do things. And I understand people that look at people like me who don't have aren't smart enough to say whoa, and say, hey, I don't want to do that. I don't want to. I can't give 3 years of my life to the organization.
Yeah.
Well, the challenge is to figure out ways to get these volunteer potentials into bite-sized chunks, so that somebody can feel that they can step forward, do something, and step back without being guilty.
Yeah. Or overwhelmed.
Yeah. And one thing about it, there's an awful lot of guilt in some of the people that have been active in OSWA over the years, that they just can't do enough, and they're tired, and
they feel they should do more.
Yeah, and they are afraid that when they let go, things will go to hell, and maybe they will, But in order for an organization to grow, it has to have the opportunity to fail, and the same for a person. So if we don't give the other members a chance to step forward with a responsibility and the legitimate chance to fail. This sounds very negative, but if you don't give somebody a chance to fail, you prevent them from having a success.
Yeah.
So
the opportunity for success.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, I think that's a good observation. And I would venture to guess that the reason that Christoph didn't find any problem but people still thought there was a problem or talked about it in that way, that it was kind of a leftover thing, and once you get something in your mind, you think, well, it's always going to be the
Yeah.
same way. And so we did have a problem period there, and I think folks just didn't realize that, hey, it's a new day.
Yeah.
I wanted to, if you don't mind, I'd like to turn our attention to talk about Brand Oregon a little bit.
Okay.
I first heard about it from Mike Gadurn, and it's being mentioned more and more and applied to quite a variety of endeavors and products. I even read about it somewhere. I think it was an ad. It talked about Brand Oregon tourism. I thought, well, I guess we're really using this
Yeah.
term, but my question for you is, did OSWA have a role in getting that movement started? Did it start with Mike Gadurn and with you and so forth and the board, or and how is it being used, or is it being used in marketing of woodland products?
You know, it's one of those things that kind of was around, and more Mike's idea than mine by a long shot. And that was that the certification schemes that are out there right now are not aimed at small woodland owners. They're too darn expensive, and there's no payoff in it for us woodland owners. And we have in Oregon more stringent environmental requirements on timber harvest than any place else that I know of. And even California's got a bunch of bureaucratic paperwork stuff, but
On the ground.
on the ground, I think that we're as detailed and environmentally sensitive as anybody, and much more so than most. And the Forest Practice Act requirements, except for a few minor things, exceed the standards of Forest Stewardship Council, FSC. We don't have any requirement for indigenous peoples.
Yeah.
You know, but we also don't have any prohibition or bad. What they don't really prohibit it, but they actively discourage plantations. So we can't plant Douglas fir. You know that's
Yes, and all.
Yeah,
That's it. Okay.
because then
All
that's a
Douglas.
plantation forest, and it's replacing a natural forest, and it's bad.
So you have to go for the diversity
Yeah,
species.
but in non-forest, in an afforestation thing, people in Chile can plant our Douglas fir, get it certified, and send it into our market.
And then do it as a plantation.
Yeah, as a plantation,
Ah,
but they are not replacing a natural forest.
Okay.
So we thought, hey, we've got all these rules that we live by. So why can't we have something like a Brand Oregon that would do the same thing?
Yeah.
And at about the same time, again, I don't know where that term came from, but the Oregon Business Council then looked at the potential. In fact, they hired an advertising firm to come up with some scheme for Brand Oregon, and it did not include forestry.
That's what I have noticed.
And so there we've been trying to
Can't we get on the bandwagon too?
well, yeah, we're getting there.
Oh.
Howard Sohn of Lone Rock Timber, who was the chairman of the Board of Forestry, is very active in the Oregon Business Council,
Yes.
and he's whispering in their ear too. So,
Yeah.
but the thing, and Jim Brown, the
President Jim Brown?
yeah, the ex-state forester was very supportive of that concept, recognizing that there are some limitations of the Forest Practices Act as such, but to be a truly certified system. But the American testing, American Standard Testing, ASTM, testing and materials and testing, something or other. It's a proposal out that in order to qualify for LEED, which is environmental something or other buildings, and get tax advantages, that you had to have certified wood in them.
Oh, yes,
Well, they're now considering the fact that wood from Oregon is
the same as.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
That's great.
and that came about through OSWA.
Uh-huh.
And we heard that, you know, this was going on, and asked Jeff Van Natta if he would kind of spark plug that for us. And he did. Boy, he's a real bulldog, you know.
Got
So,
right on it. Huh?
yeah.
All over it.
And so they are considering words to that effect. And in effect, diluting the FSC, you know,
Oh.
grip on it, yeah.
Yeah, on
on
certification.
Yeah, so that see,
interesting.
FSC would be the only scheme
Yeah.
that would fit. They're ignoring.
It's almost they had written it to fit that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And those buildings, that's different. I mean, homes, for instance, or buildings that are built with that certified wood, are they called the green buildings, or is it something,
that's-
a different term?
um,
Green buildings maybe are the especially environmentally friendly
well,
ones, I guess.
and in order to be a green building, they got to have LEED,
LEAD?
no, LEED, I think.
LEED.
Yeah.
I wonder what that stands for. Do you know?
No, but Mike does.
Oh, ask Mike Goodern.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I just may do that. All right. Well, I think that's very
Okay.
helpful, and I would like to include some of that in
Okay,
your,
yeah.
yeah, because I think this is something that came about during your presidency, a lot of
yeah.
that, and it's interesting to kind of get your take on that. As of this evening, you're stepping down from long service, very successful service to OSWA, all of us in the state. You have undoubtedly influenced OSWA's recent objectives. Where would you like to see OSWA go in the coming years? Do you kind of have a vision for that?
Well, you know, at the annual meeting over at Beaverton, when?
That was
2002
2 years ago, wasn't it?
or 1, I presented a vision of where OSWA would be in 10 years. Then I revisited that in an update article last month and the month before. In the June update.
Okay.
And
I
you know,
hope I still have that.
kind of where we had gone, and some things that we hadn't done.
Uh-huh.
Well, one of them is that we, at that point in time, did not have a 501c3, a charitable organization.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we have it. We're just waiting for IRS certification of it, but we've got all the papers filed, and it sounds like it just, you know, in the bureaucratic thing. And that will permit OSWA to accept gifts and literally get into management of forest land, of small woodland owner properties. And then also, you know, as a result of that, develop a field staff so that we can provide some forestry, you know, assistance, not necessarily free of charge, but have some certified foresters or consulting foresters working for us. Maybe, you know, maybe on contract. Not the intent on my part anyway isn't to have OSWA compete with the consulting foresters organization, but provide a market for them.
I think that's very good.
And you know, who knows? Maybe some of the chapters could get into some type of an equipment rental program, where, you know, some oddball thing like, I've got a farming winch, and I use it once in a while.
Yeah.
But do I need, $2,500 invested in that?
Not every day.
Yeah, and so, that this would have to be at the chapter level. I can't see it working out of a warehouse in Salem.
Yeah.
But, different kinds of whether want to have something as mundane as planting hose. Just something like that.
Yeah,
so
that
that
could be rented out
Yeah.
or something like that.
But those are a couple of things that hit my mind that we hadn't done. A lot of the things that we had done that I had identified to get done in 10 years are done already.
Whoa.
What that says is I don't have a really good crystal ball.
Because you've already accomplished those. Check, check, check.
Yeah.
That's great, John. I'm not a bit surprised, actually. Okay. What do you think will be the greatest challenge for the incoming president? Do you care to comment on that one?
Yeah, the biggest challenge that he'll have is activating volunteers, and he is already getting started on that.
Good.
He's identifying some folks for committees, and I'm sitting back thinking that the organization is in good hands.
Good.
And that we're going on.
Yes.
And in all seriousness, it was possible 4 years ago that we weren't. That was that kind of.
Is that for publication or not?
Well, I don't know. I did not want to preside over the demise of OSWA. And that was
a possibility.
Yeah, that was a possibility.
That's right.
And so my objective was to turn it around, if that's the power, but make it an effective, viable organization that was making a difference.
Yeah, and I think it is.
And another thing that I neglected to say that is really a change that has happened during my shift is the hiring of Christina McNett and the place of OSWA in the legislative thing. We're in the proactive side now instead of negative reacting, and
a whole different level.
Yeah, and our response in the legislature is very favorable, and that Christina is she's
been doing a great job.
She's not getting paid enough, but she's still working for us.
That's good.
And just the professionalism that she brings to that job, and during the interim, that Government Affairs Committee or Government Activities Committee meets once a month for 4 or 5 hours and looks at some of the things that are coming down the pike, and with the idea that when the legislation starts up, or the session starts, that we will have some proposals in the pipeline. And
Be ready to make some.
Yeah, and instead of sitting back and saying, okay, now who's going to
Who's going to go out and get us? Or something.
Yeah.
I think that's so healthy and very positive.
Yeah. So I can say I'm leaving in good spirits. I'm just happy to be going.
All right.
Not as happy as John Rounds, however.
Okay. I guess that maybe you've almost answered my next question, which is what are you feeling now that you're reached another retirement point in your career?
I guess what I'm looking forward to is retiring to the tree farm.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of stuff up there that hasn't been done. In fact, in the update that's coming out in July, I say something about the widow woman's farm, and Mary said that's sexist. But the thing is that in the old days, the widow woman didn't have it. Just wasn't able to do it,
Yeah.
and the place got weedy and run down.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want our place to look like that, and it doesn't. We're working quite hard on it. So,
You want to prevent it from becoming.
yeah,
What was that term you used? The widow's.
widow woman's farm.
The widow woman's farm. Okay.
So we may have.
So you do have some future plans, and it's getting
Yeah.
right back to forestry.
Yeah.
All right.
But I also have some plans for the fifth wheel.
I'm glad to hear that. Well, thank you very much, John. Are there any other areas that you would like to comment upon?
No, I
You feel like we've covered
feel
it?
that I've done a pretty good job.
All right. Then we'll turn it off.
Yeah.